Welcome to Cinema Red Pill. I'm Sharon, and today I am hosting solo, having an interview with Naseeba Bagalaaliwo, who is not in Kampala today, but we're able to talk to her online. Happy to do that, not limit ourselves to anything. So Naseeba, could you first start by introducing yourself?
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for having me. My name is Naseeba, as you mentioned. I am a filmmaker from Uganda, where I was born and raised, but I'm currently in LA studying. And basically, I'm a filmmaker, illustrator, aspiring producer, and I'm interested in making content about Africa, most especially about African women and telling positive stories, but also stories that explore identity.
Okay. That's great. So you have mentioned to me before we started recording, and just like you said, you're in school. Could you tell us about that? Did you study? When did you know that you wanted to go to film school, really? When did you get the interest in doing film school?
Well, I think I'm one of those people. I think I always knew as a child that I actually wanted to be a filmmaker. I really loved watching, well, more like television, because I really love watching television more than films themselves. But then, kind of growing up in Africa, it's like, where are the opportunities? You don't see African filmmakers there making money, or you don't really in general see that kind of content or hear the names. So growing up, I kind of like went the path of doing something practical. So I studied law. That was my undergraduate degree. So technically I'm a lawyer by training. So I never practiced law.
Did you study law here in Uganda or elsewhere?
No, I studied law in the UK.
In the UK, okay. And then you quit.
That's where I got my degree.
Okay.
And then I kind of like worked, I kind of used that to work like in the nonprofit sector. And then when I came back to Uganda, I worked for a little bit for WBS. Well, I say work, but like I was interning at WBS when it was still there.
Those days.
Yes, those days of, so I used to work like on Jam Agenda at WBS. And then I kind of started working in like public relations and PR. So I was doing a lot of like communication work, so kind of media adjacent, but not necessarily filmmaking. And then, I mean, just basically what I was doing up until I guess COVID. I had a stint where I was in Germany for a bit, but also that was relatively to do with filmmaking, because like I started kind of thinking what I really wanted to do with my career. You know, have those moments in life when you start deciding, is this what do I see myself doing this 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? And as I was thinking about that, I kind of decided, well, I never really tried doing the film thing. I have my degree. I can use it in the film sector. And also I wasn't kind of getting opportunities in Uganda. Wherever I was knocking on doors, it was very hard. People were like, but you have a law degree, why do you want to do film? It doesn't make sense. You can make money doing law. Like, why would you want to change all of that? But like, I decided to take a leap of faith and kind of apply to film school, and now I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Wow. I think I saw you fundraising. Did you fundraise to pay the tuition for school?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to fundraise because it's a lot of money to be here, and I didn't have all the money necessarily to pay for my full year of. It's a 2-year program because it's a master's degree, and so I needed some help. And I decided to write to some people, and then an actor here who's also Ugandan reached out to me. Well, I reached out to him, and he kind of was like, okay, let's have a conversation over Zoom. So we had a conversation over Zoom, and he was like, okay, well, I think I like what you're trying to do, and let's go for it. Let's see how we can get this money and raise this money. So I got a lot of help from people, Ugandans in the diaspora, Ugandans at home. Everyone was pretty much like pitching in, and I managed to raise around $20,000, which essentially paid for my entire first semester here. So
that was entire.
Yes.
That's amazing. I saw that campaign and I saw him really pushing it. So it's amazing that you actually didn't know him personally. I was like, hey, maybe you're friends. It's nice that he simply listened to your story and did it that way. So are you really enjoying film school? How is film school for you so far? Which are the Yeah.
It's yeah, sorry for interrupting you.
No,
It's
as like, which are the areas that are the most stand out for you in school?
oh, basically, I'm studying producing, so my course is mainly focused on producing, and it's so the business side of film, but also kind of the creative side, kind of trying to combine those two and see all the different roles and the players within that pathway. And I guess the most interesting thing is realizing here how structured the industry is, and basically how many different routes there are for people to take in the film business. When we talk in Uganda, a lot of people do projects on their own. They're a producer, writer, director, editor. They're making
Everything.
yeah, they're a master, or they're essentially kind of like a jack of all trades and not really kind of a master. Is that the phrase? A jack of all trades and master of none. And I think that is kind of what a producer is in a lot of ways. You have to know a lot about all the different things and the different aspects that go into making a film, kind of from the developing side to writing side to finding talent and casting people, all the way down to kind of distributing and selling film. So I just wanted to have that skill set because I felt like there was a gap in the film business in Uganda and in Africa in some places. And I wanted to see how I could tap into the expertise here and basically learn from the best and see how to make that sustainable when I come back home, because like I'm really focused on working on African content and finding stories that we haven't seen before. So it's been challenging. It's interesting. I mean, I'm one of only 3 international students here, the only African here. And so it's also kind of trying to bring that perspective to conversations, because a lot of the conversations we have in class are very much focused on like Western content. So it's kind of trying to make your mark. Yeah.
I understand that. That's good to know. And it's really great specifically that you also really want to make content from the continent. So that's really great. Let's dig into Scalp Deep. I have to start by saying the short film is available online. So I'll definitely share it alongside as a link into this for the podcast, and also just on all our socials so people can really see it before they listen to the conversation with you. It's a really great show. It's a really, really great short. Description, could you describe it? I just feel I won't do it justice. Could you describe the short and what it's about?
I guess for me, as at the top of the program, I talked about like identity and wanting to explore female identity, and I think the things that we can all relate to universally as women in different societies. So I made this film, Scalp Deep, and it kind of explores how hair and how integral it is as part of women's identity, but also how it's something kind of very superficial at the same time, but it holds so much importance in a lot of ways in how people view, understand, judge women, whether that be in terms of their beauty, in terms of the inferring or assuming things about their sexuality or gender identity. And that's basically what the film is about. So it's about a woman kind of trying to navigate that process and the different points of views that she gets from people around her based on a moment where she decides to cut her hair off.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the typical question? What inspired the story? Was it just knowing those experiences, or was there like a specific, maybe there's always things around us that we're aware of that are common things, like we're like the hair politics is something that's been in the ether for a while, but was there like a push, like something that pushed you to put your interest so heavily in something specific and make you make a film about it? Was there like a trigger?
I mean, I don't think there was a specific trigger. I think it was mostly just having conversations with different people, stressing about, oh, what am I going to do with my hair? Especially when you're working, you've always got that thing of, now I have to do something to make my hair look professional, and just all that kind of stress that you have and anxiety about it. And then I always had I have a twin sister, and I always having these conversations with my cousins, also my other sisters, about like our hair and what to do with it and hair envy and all these things. And so I kind of we started thinking about making a documentary. I mean, right now it's an animated film, but initially I was supposed to be a documentary idea when I pitched to the Goethe Institute. And then what happened was quarantine hit, and we were in lockdown. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have access to the people who I wanted to interview because people had moved, had gone up country. They were all in different places. I mean, people weren't that familiar with Zoom at the time. And so I had to kind of adapt the idea and think, well, how do I make this film in the context now that we're in without having the people who I initially thought would be contributing to the documentary? And so I kind of turned it into an animation. And in the end, I think that made it a lot more adaptable, but there wasn't really one specific, I think, moment that triggered it. But it was also just thinking about the conversations that were being had, like in America, in Britain, in other countries, like even in South Africa, where people were like protesting, like the rules around girls and their hair in schools. And in Uganda, we have similar rules where, you know, a lot of schools, girls have to cut their hair off. And the reason is given is for hygiene and vanity's sake, or you can't study if you're worried about your hair, and those kinds of excuses. And so it was like, where did this idea come from? When I started doing this research, I was like, where did this idea actually come from? And I guess in doing that, and seeing all the conversations that were being had, I kind of thought it would be an interesting topic to explore as well in the context of kind of Uganda.
That's really great. I think there was also around that time, the conversation came up a lot about how in Ugandan schools, the Indian kids will have hair, and us with the black hair. Those guys, like, it creates such a stigma because it said, oh, it's hard to take care of it. So you grow up feeling, okay, yeah, my hair is hard to be taken care of. Then what should make it easy? Softening it. So it's like, oh, then I must soften it because it will definitely be hard, right? It's just so the way our hair is, yeah, it's really shit. When I think about it too, I really hate it a lot. How stigmatized our hair has become for us as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that it's something that spanned a lot of decades, you know, and still today where people are still having those conversations all over the globe. I mean, so recently you saw the Oscars and the incident, and that was about a Black woman's hair. So there's a lot of like things. Yes, exactly. There's a lot of still, even today in this time when women are liberated, when people are having these conversations about policing women's body, it's still something that people that feel free to make fun of. It's something that even when they know how seriously and how it affects women in society, in the workplace, how they're considered and what beauty standards are, that people feel free to joke about it. And not just people who are not of color, but even people of color, men of color, make those same comments. So it's also interrogating identity in terms of how gender politics also plays into stigmatizing Black women and their bodies.
Yes, for sure. I was also really thinking about it again when I was watching the film today about short hair. And I feel like the conversation I don't know whether it's because maybe I'm older and I'm just more, I know who I am more. So I feel like the people around me know who they are more. But generally, I feel like the conversation people have really spoken out loud about hair. And I feel there was such an embrace of it. Like, there'd be a lot of posts of people like in their natural hair journey. There was a moment when a lot of people cut their hair, and I was trying to recall, maybe it was the time when Lupita had her hair short. Do you remember when Lupita had her hair short and then she had a little line in her hair? Then you'd walk in Kampala and see so many women with their hair short, and that line in the hair was just so amusing.
Yeah,
it got kind of trendy a few years back for people to now have natural hair. I was like, yeah, this is a good trend. If it's just it might go, but I like that this is happening right now. Do you enjoy seeing such things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I enjoy seeing anytime like women or people are able to express themselves in whatever they want and not get judged for it. You know, I grew up in a household with a mother who was a women's rights lawyer and an advocate for the rights of women. So very much that is always at the forefront at my mind when I'm working on projects, when I'm thinking about ideas. It's like how to show women in in roles where they have agency and they have authority and they're powerful, but also that they can make mistakes and have choices and they don't have to be a perfect specimen, you know, because a lot of the time we have the expectations that we have to be perfect, we have to do the right thing, you know, we have to look the right way. So it manifests in lots of kind of different ways in our society. And so, yes, I think it's really important to me to be like, when I do, not that it's the only topic I want to explore, but it's kind of an important element of kind of the work I do and the things that interest me as a human being as well.
Okay, that's really great. To get into some a bit of technicality with the film, I was wondering if you had any specific women in mind while you were drawing the women in the film, because they have like specific features. I wondered if you had people in mind, like a vision of some women you had in your head, like with the friends and the mom.
Actually, to be fair, I didn't really have any specific people, but actually the mother is actually based on my own mom. So like she was kind of like the model for it. I mean, doesn't really look very much like her, but also in the background, like the little Easter eggs in there where I have like different things like the people on the Zoom call are kind of, I think I was trying to also in some way draw from some of my friends, but not necessarily specifically, because I find sometimes they're subconscious, direct you in a specific way. And I think at the time, also I was seeing a lot of people with dreadlocks. And so I was also trying to see like the different hairstyles that I was seeing around Kampala and kind of put that in there. So you see a girl with like her natural hair, but it's kind of like more than afro. You see the girl with the braids, or the girl with the dreadlocks. So it's kind of trying to represent all the kind of the rainbow of hairstyles that people adopt and kind of wear. And yeah, but I think definitely the only real one that that is in there that was definitely an inspiration was kind of the mother figure. And then obviously we have like the South African model who won the beauty competition, also was a reference to that as well, was in there. So not really a lot of people. I was very much limited because my drawing ability is not that great, you know. I wasn't like really an artist. It took me a lot to like draw all the different like people. So I also was trying to make as simple as possible the characters, because I'm not really a great artist. So simplicity dictated how they look.
Oh.
And my lack of ability.
The roadblocks usually end up making something really unique. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even just making it, you know, I made it on a borrowed iPad. I didn't have a stylus pen, so I made my own stylus pen. You know, I kind of Googled on YouTube how to make a stylus pen. And basically, yes, you can make one on your own. Like if you have like, so what I had was like, you know, those old Parker pens that people used to have, those metallic Parker pens?
Yes.
And then like I had like a bunch of like Q-tips, and like you use a Q-tip, and as long as it touches the metal and then you dip it in a little bit of water, it conducts and like acts like a writing pen. So that's really how I drew it. So it took a really long time because I didn't have a pen. I just had to keep changing the little earbuds at the end. But yeah, like ingenuity happens when you're limited by quarantine and like budget and tools.
True. That's very true. How about, say, I wonder if when you were writing it, was it going to have no dialogue? Was it going to be that way? Or did you initially want to have some voice actors say the dialogue?
To be fair, it did not have any dialogue because I didn't really have a script necessarily speaking when I was making it, because initially I was just going to go out and interview people and ask questions and kind of build a kind of a short documentary based around people's responses. So I just had like an outline of questions that I wanted and subject areas that I wanted to talk about when initially I had pitched the idea. So I didn't necessarily have a script and I didn't write one down. I just kind of thought of images and kind of what visually what I wanted to see, and then started drawing that. And then once I started drawing a few scenes, I think the dream was one of the first things. And then also because I'd been doing research about kind of the history in schools of girls cutting their hair, and that it came from like the British missionaries that came in. I had a very specific kind of idea of a nun, and like I guess also one of my favorite films was The Sound of Music. So I don't know. So there was something in the ether that kind of also dictated where kind of the story went in terms of what part of the history it was exploring and where the idea of cutting hair came from. And yes, I didn't really have a script. I just built as I went along, and I cut a lot of things out because, again, my drawing ability, there were more things I would have added if I could have drawn them. Yeah, so it was not really scripted in that way. And yeah, because I don't really see myself as a writer that much. I mean, it's something I'm working on a lot as a competency. But even like my film that I did here for school, I had no dialogue until the very end. So I think there's something about, yeah. And I think also it was more approachable in terms of, I kind of was trying to look at, when I was trying to look for references of kind of what I wanted the illustration to look like, I was looking at a lot of like comic books and like the New York Times strips, but even in Uganda, the black and white comics that used to run in the newspapers a long time ago. So that gray and black and was kind of stylistically, I was trying to create a unique style that people hadn't seen yet. So I kind of really limited the color palette down. I wanted it to reference Uganda in some way. So the yellow in there.
That's really, really
those
nice.
were just artistic choices. Yeah.
That's really cool. But that's great, because if you're working even visually entirely, like film is such a visual medium, so having even a stronger visual sense, like the writing, it speaks for itself. Like dialogueless, there's some people even watch some movies with dialogue without the dialogue to see the strength of the film without it. So it's always good to start that way, I think. Great angle. I wanted to ask also about the sound design. What was that process like for you? Because I like a lot of the choices that were really made, maybe all of them. Why am I nitpicking? Especially just some small sounds like the creepy, like an at night sound, maybe pushing of grass, because I tend to feel like, say, I watch a lot of TV series that go on Ugandan TV, on Pearl Magic, and there's not a lot of sound design. I've noticed people not putting those because they create such a strong effect on the film. Like even if the car is driving, like it's good to have like the car driving sound, because it's not going to be as heavy as when you've recorded it on set. So one thing I really found so strong is just the little sound cues that you have surrounded. I think maybe since you weren't having any dialogue, you had to concentrate on sound, but I really dug it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't have any dialogue, I wasn't going to make a silent film, essentially, because I thought that will bore people a lot if there's no like any kind of sound and just watching it and it's just quiet. So when I was doing it, what I started with actually in terms of sound was actually looking for songs I like, because I also was limited when I was making this film. The idea was, when I pitched it to the Goethe Institute, was to kind of try and make a film at as low cost as possible. And by the time I had started the animation, I had actually was supposed to make a mobile film with my iPhone, to make like a mobile film and to see how feasible that idea was. Because people always say, oh, we can go out and make films with like our phones and they'll look good and technology has advanced so much. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's as easy as people actually think. And it's one of the solutions that's always being touted for African filmmakers. And so I was going to test that theory and see, is this really something that's doable, like so on a small scale? So I had bought like bunch of little tripods and little kind of recording things with the budget that I had, which was about like, the Goethe gave me a budget of 2 million. So I spent all of that practically. Wow. And so now I essentially buying like the equipment and stuff. And so the little mobile phone equipment. So I had nothing left. So now I had to think about, okay, so how am I going to make this animation with when I spent the money and now I can't go out and actually film anything. And so I then used everything I used making the film was essentially a free resource. Even the application I used to make it is a mobile phone application called Flip-a-Clip, which is essentially you can download it for free on your iPhone and an iPad. And then if you want to take away the watermark, you pay $9. So I drew the entire film, and then the only money I actually spent on it was in drawing that was like in taking away that the watermark and paying the $9. So essentially I made that animation for $9. And so all the music I used is from Creative Commons. So you can use it for commercial purposes without copyright, because that's what that resource is there. So I spent a long time just browsing those libraries, looking on YouTube, looking for copyright-free things that I could use, because obviously I couldn't use well-known songs. Like initially, I also wanted to use more songs that were more Ugandan and more African, but that would have meant paying somebody to either create something bespoke for me or to pay someone to use some original existing music. So yeah, it was just all free music that I found on the internet that was copyright free. Nice. So a lot of searching.
I know. Okay, we have a few minutes before we have to go, because the Zoom, this is free Zoom, so I have a short time. So I don't know why I thought I would not have much to ask you, because even just talking about the film, there's so much to talk about. We don't need to talk about Sound of Music much, and you brought it up, so it's good for people to know the thing you already like. I was wondering maybe if we could close off with talking about the film that you're making, which you'll hopefully release soon, so that we can have something to anticipate from you.
Well, at school, so basically it's a school class project that I've made. Every year, the program that I'm on, the first years make 14 films or so. So half the classes, the whole classes, we're a class of like 28, everybody pitches a film, and then the class votes on the best ideas of the films they want to work on, and mine was one of the ones selected. So it's a short film. It's, again, because we have like a very limited budget that we have to all kind of put towards, and so I wrote and produced it, and it's called Kosti, and it's about, again, identity. This is about a young Muslim woman kind of navigating her faith, and when she loses her partner and somebody important in her life, so she's navigating the grief and her relationship with her faith and overcoming that. And again, it's another film that has got a lot of sound design built into it. There's essentially, again, not really any real type of music, and there's only a little very dialogue, which is kind of a poem I wrote at the very end. So that's what it's about. And so we're currently kind of trying to figure out our festival strategy and where we're going to put it out.
Do you like the film? Is it great? Is the output what you were wanting and more, or anything? Do you love it?
I mean, I will say it looks very good. I worked with a very kind of talented director of photography in my class, who has really worked hard on getting a look that was really cinematic. I mean, because we shot it here in Los Angeles, but we're trying to kind of mimic, I don't know, Mombasa on our very limited budget. So we went out to the beach to shoot, and we got like a few really great scenes. I think it's a really great looking film. I hope people can connect to it and understand it, because again, it has no dialogue. And I think it's one of those films that, like you were talking about earlier, that works on kind of people's emotion and using that as the vehicle for telling the story, as opposed to using and relying on dialogue.
That's great. Can't wait to see it. Really, really can't wait to see it. I really like to ask the filmmakers who come on here some just really quick questions. So you've already said that The Sound of Music is a favorite film, but do you have a favorite director?
That is a difficult one to say.
Or writer, like maybe a favorite artist. It doesn't need to be specific film.
Oh gosh, who do I pick? Okay, just for the sake of it, and because I just spent so long, I just watched the last season of Insecure. I'm gonna say Issa Rae in terms of writing. She's black, she's of African descent, she's funny. She showcases Black women, Black bodies, Black hair, based in Los Angeles, but about smart, intelligent women and friendship. So yes, I'm gonna say Issa Rae and Insecure is kind of one of my favorite writers at the moment. Yeah.
And the last thing I also like to ask is, what's the last thing that you watched and liked?
Oh, are we talking TV?
It can be TV. It doesn't need to be specific. The last thing, if you don't watch much, it could be a book. Anything you recommend that you last engaged with.
Wow, let me think about it. Well, okay, so I'll tell you what the last thing I watched. The last thing I watched was is basically have you seen it's on Netflix. It's called Love, Death and Robots. So I'm kind of into and it's like a little pieces of like animation that are on different stories, but like they're really funny and they span a lot of different subject matters, because that's the last thing I watched and enjoyed. If we're talking, because I just watched it yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess books. All the books are really going to be about like school things. But essentially, because all I've been reading is assigned reading at school.
Readings.
So I haven't really kind of read anything on my own just for the sake of reading anything.
That's okay. Love, Death and Robots is a great choice.
Love, Death and Robots. If people like animation, yeah.
That's great. Okay. We have to run. Thank you so much, Naseeba, for doing this, for being available, coming on at this time, your time, like 6 a.m. I really, really thank you so much. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I enjoy your podcast. I love listening to different people that you bring on and all their points of view. And it's really exciting to engage with other creative women. And so thank you for having me on your podcast.
Really,
I'm
really
a big
happy.
podcast fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you said you listen to lots of them.
I listen to so much, but so much true crime though.
Oh, understandable. That's engaging. Okay, this is it. Thank you, Naseeba. This has been Cinema Red Pill, our interview with Naseeba. Her film will be linked below in the notes. Please watch it if you haven't, and come all this way, please, you must watch it. Thank you, and looking forward to the next one. Yeah. Bye. Let me stop recording.